Hello, hello, hello. Guys, welcome to another edition. Sorry, I'm just kind of adjusting things still, but welcome to another edition of Mental Maintenance. I am Croco, aka Naya. Um, I am going to be talking about impulsivity today. Now, the last one we talked about was one that I've been told I'm really good at. This is one that I do not think I do really well, and I actually struggle with a lot myself. So, this should be kind of fun. I'm going to let the music just kind of play out a little bit while I still get things ready, but just kind of jam out for a second, guys. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for that. Um, you guys are awesome. Okay, we will. Let's probably turn that back up. We will dive into this one. Impulsivity. Sorry if there's any noise. There's some kind of landscaping going on outside my window, so sorry if any of that is picking up in advance. But impulsivity, yeah. So we'll start with the Nile or Croco's definition, and then we'll just kind of go from there. I view, and then I'll do the real definition as well. But I view impulsivity. It's kind of like when your attention is lost, and it never truly was there. You just kind of like maybe you'll start something, or you start to think about like you start you got to do something, but even in the midst of having to do something, you just kind of like get distracted very easily. It's kind of like in the realm of that to me. That's how I think it at least applies to me a lot. It's just kind of like you can't necessarily focus in. You got to do the first thing that like you're urged to do at the drop of a dime. It could be at any point, as opposed to kind of like focusing in and locking in and getting maybe one thing or one specific thing done. But I know that's a very terrible definition. Let me go over to our Googles and I will go ahead and give you guys. Let me turn this up a little bit too. But hold on, sorry. From according to Google, sorry, just wanted to turn that up a little bit. But according to Google, impulsivity is actually I kind of didn't realize when I did empathy. I that was treated as like a Oxford definition. It like had a clear cut definition for you guys. With impulsivity, it's kind of given as like a medical condition. So this is according to this definition is um, according to the Mayo Clinic, and it says that impulsivity is a problem with emotional or behavioral self control. Yeah, I would say definitely it's a self control tendency or tendency. According to WebMD, it is the tendency to act without thinking. I definitely think that kind of falls more in line with what I was kind of describing before. It's just kind of like this urge to do the first thing that comes to mind, as opposed to like it coming from a structured thought or a structured realm. Um, I think that some of our habits actually really cause this for us. I wanted to do this one just because, again, it's one where I kind of struggle with it. And I'm not saying that it's one that you necessarily struggle with as well if you listen to the show. But, you might. And that's why I was like, let me just go ahead and knock this one out as our second addition to our little comeback here for mental maintenance. Um, How do you combat impulsivity? That is the question. It is really one too, because boy, it can definitely be difficult. I do go to, like, I've participated in therapy sessions. I'm pretty sure I've shared that on mental maintenance before. One of the things that we kind of talk about in therapy is like this idea of introducing things like meditation, focusing on your breathing. A lot in that Mayo Clinic definition, they refer to it as an emotional kind of reaction as well. It's not, or behavioral, emotional and behavioral. You know, impulsivity could be that impulse to go to anger or go to violence if you're somebody who kind of struggles with that. It could be a sexual impulse. It could be uh, uh sadness. Like, you could have an impulse. It's not one that people, I think about a lot, but you could almost have like an impulsivity in regards to um depression and anxiety. I definitely know I can get one from that. My anxiousness can sometimes lead to me being very impulsive at times. How do you combat these things? Again, like I said, in therapy, we've talked about introducing meditation. Something that's really, I've noticed that people who are like myself and kind of struggle with impulsivity, that's the one that, like, we really, from what I've witnessed, and I know I don't have the largest sample size to go from here, but from what I've really noticed is people who I've observed that look similar to me, not trying to push anything on them, but I'll just say look similar to me. One of the hardest things that I find, not just them but myself, I have a very hard time doing, is actually meditating. Like, it's this great recommendation. I do feel in my gut that it's a like really good recommendation to kind of focus yourself back in. The breathing side, like actually doing like breathing techniques to kind of focus you on where you are, the when and now. Get it to where you aren't necessarily acting without thinking, but just kind of breathing and hoping that those breathing mechanisms can kind of help rein you back in. I'm also a very spiritual person, so I would probably throw praying and prayer. That maybe they say meditation with God, so like maybe that one I'm a little bit easier with. Having, when I'm in prayer, I feel as though I can kind of like central myself and bring myself back where I'm actually acting on the things that I'm thinking about doing, as opposed to acting without thought. But those two are a little bit easier for me. But if you told me to sit down and meditate, I used to actually do meditation a lot when I was younger, and it definitely, I think that's why I believe in it so much, because I actually have done it before. But meditation has, at least in the past for me, when I have been more capable of doing it. Again, I was younger, so I had, there was a lot more factors in the positive that don't, that kind of are at play. Like, what I mean by that is, when you're younger, you just don't really have as many responsibilities and things to worry about. And I feel like that is what just kind of made meditation more attractive for me when I was younger, and also be something that has been useful in regards to combating and controlling impulsivity. But as I've gotten older, it's just become really hard, because if I try to meditate, it's so much that's on my mind just from the responsibilities that I have as I've gotten older, that it just doesn't, it seems like it's a very hard and tall glass for me to combat. But I do really, it's something that I want to get back into doing. I'm gonna just try to really push myself to. I think there's certain impulsivities that I have to like immediately combat in order for me to even utilize meditation in regards to helping me with that. There's some things that just are really big things. Like, if you're a smoker, I'm a smoker for anybody out there. So if you're a smoker, that is something that is a huge catalyst to impulsivity, at least from what I've noticed. The impulse and urge, the acting without thought for wanting to go smoke something, it does wonders on the other side of your impulsivity. It well, not wonders, but it does it does some work. It puts some work on that for a psychological reason. Because if you can make an excuse for the impulsivity with smoking, you can make an excuse for the impulsivity on like anything else, and then you already are justifying it in one area. So it's like, why not justify it here in this other area, and here and over there? It's I want to combat my smoking behavior a lot as a way to help me to then try to kind of narrow in on where I can control other impulsive acts in my life. But yeah, if you're a smoker out there, I definitely recommend, like, if most smokers want to stop smoking. It's like a common trait with smokers. I've never really met a smoker that was like, yeah, I want to keep smoking my whole life. You start having families and things like that. You don't really want to smoke like that. If you use it for if it started from like even for creative and educational reasons, which is like where it started for me. Like, yeah, even with that, you get to a point where it's like, I'm not even doing those things anymore, and I'm still smoking. I don't want to smoke anymore. So I don't know. I just don't think that I've met many smokers that haven't wanted to stop smoking, just so that way they can view some of the health benefits and feelings that come with not doing that. So if you are a smoker and you are the typical smoker who typically wants to stop, I say if you do notice that you are struggling from impulsivity, I would definitely say kind of look into how much your smoking habits might be playing a part in that. Again, it's something I'm sincerely trying to combat myself. um Let me see. Again, meditation, big ones that have come across my board in life, my board of life, is meditation, breathing exercises. So going back to that really quickly, people who do suffer from anger management esque problems, you've done this one before. You know what I'm talking about here. They say when you get really to that point where you feel like it's almost like an anger, or people with anxiety even too, when you get to that point where you start feeling like you can't breathe, that's sometimes the easiest way for you to get out of that moment that you're in, is just simply to focus on your breathing. So, we can apply the same thing here with impulsiveness. Again, remember the WebMD. Again, all of the definitions are coming from medical places saying this is like a medical problem, which I kind of want to emphasize here, even though I'm learning that real time with you guys. I really want to emphasize that now that I know that, because like seriously, this is like a medical thing. Impulsivity is a medical problem. Like, you have to almost look at it that way. With that being said, I almost would recommend, if it's something you are self-conscious enough to recognize you struggle with, I would even go as far as maybe talking to your doctor about it, because it does have those medical implications tied to it. But going back to, again, the breathing exercises inside to this, um because impulsivity is defined as being a thoughtless act, essentially it's an act without putting your thought or your thinking behind it. um when you just try to breathe and focus on your breathing, um you what happens is you start to actually think about the things you want to think about. It kind of pushes you back into your central place. You kind Even if you don't, it at least stops you from the act without thinking, because now you are thinking, you're thinking about your breathing. So if you weren't thinking before, now you're using the breathing to help you think again. So I definitely do think that one, again, it helps me a lot with anxiety, just kind of going in that. If you're a religious person, kind of put prayer is like a sandwich in between both of those. It's kind of like it has both elements of meditation and the breathing exercises. Um, when you're saying a prayer, you just kind of like focusing more so on the words that you're saying. So it's replacing the breathing with the words that you're using. But it is very helpful for me as somebody who exist with a spiritual understanding and sentiment. But for those of you that don't, you could just, again, just default back to um or default back over to just the breathing side of it. Spend that same amount of time that a person may spend in prayer, breathing. Also, going back to the faith people for a second, we're supposed to, one of the things that across the board, anybody in the spiritual realm is supposed to have is some sense of faith. So I think when you go into prayer, it's kind of putting faith more so into the thoughts that you want to have and into the things that you want to see manifest within yourself. Um, and the psychological just impression that leaves on you, again, is putting you back in the actual thought on things that you actually do think about and do care about. And it curves that, though these are things that help just curve that urge that kind of pops up from being more so impulsive. It's a life crippler. Impulsivity is a life crippler. You know, you will start to back yourself in the corner in regards to how far you can go, because the impulses will start to outweigh the actions that you actually are doing and completing. I've fallen victim to this countless times in my life. So that's what, you know, and again, I don't think that I'm alone. I don't think that the things that I go through are necessarily alone, or I'm alone in. There are things that obviously are specific to me, but when we start talking about these things on a more general basis, I don't think that I'm alone in these things. So that's why it's just important for me to talk to you about this. It's a very vulnerable, I guess you could say, topic for me, because it's not even something that I fully learned to combat myself, but it is something that I want to address, which is why I think it's a good idea for us to just kind of be able to discuss it, um, in this light now. Is it good at all to be impulsive? I think that there are moments where like impulsivity can be good. There's times like if you're in a, it just depends though. Like if you're playing in a sports game, like let's say basketball as an example, and you didn't really think about it, but you just kind of impulsively went to steal the ball when you saw that this player, they carelessly were passing this ball here. They should have did a bounce pass when they did a chest pass, and it's right within arm's reach for you, and you don't really think about it, but just because of the practice and training that you have, you impulsively jump forward for that steal. I don't think that that's necessarily a way, that was a bad impulse. That was a moment where your impulse was bad. If it's saving somebody's life in a medical situation as well, you had the impulse to jump into doing CPR. You didn't really think about it. You just did. That's, another example where impulsivity can kind of be a good thing. I'm not necessarily saying that we need to rid our life completely of impulsive actions, because again, they can save lives, they can win games, they could do all of these wonderful things at times in our life. But it's just the ones that like they exist in moments where like you could have been doing something more productive for, or something that you really just wanted to do. Like if I want to do, and again, I'll make it as personal as I possibly can, just so that way you can understand it from from how this is something that affects me as well. Like if I want to record a show, and then I get the impulse to go look on websites for different sneakers. I just recently got, and I'm starting to get into sneakers, guys. I have a terrible sense of fashion, so I'm really excited. Like I'm really excited about kind of getting more sneakers and doing more things to get more sneakers, because I love it. I'm trying to build a wardrobe from it. But anyways, using that as my example, if I'm supposed to do a recording, I know that my thoughts are gathered around the idea of me doing a recording, and then I impulsively go onto a website to look up, what sneakers I want to buy next, or what sneakers I like or I'm interested in, or what clothes I'm gonna get to go along with the sneakers that I want, or whatever way it goes. If I'm doing that in that moment, well, I'm kind of acting away from what my thoughts were. My thoughts were to actually sit down, do a recording, and get that sense of accomplishment from that. But now my impulsiveness is leading me to do something that I'm probably not going to act on in that moment, and it's taken away that sense of accomplishment for me. It's not going to motivate me, and it's probably going to put me into a depressed state, because I didn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to do. Instead, I acted on my impulses. So it's in situations like that I think we could just kind of take more time to actually combat impulsivity within ourselves. The worse that impulsivity can go can result in like people losing their lives. It can result in harm to ourselves, harm to others, harm to animals, harm to our community. These are the type of things that come as are at the worst end of us giving into our impulsivity. So I think it's something that can really help not just ourselves, not just others, but it can help overall our interactions within society, if we just kind of spend a little bit of time just focusing in on exactly how our impulsiveness uh is playing a role or playing a part in our lives. I'm just gonna get something to drink really, really quickly because that was very long-winded, as I always do. But give me 1 second, guys. I'll be right back. I didn't pause it. It didn't take that long to do, so I didn't want to pause it or anything like that. Just thank you for like the dead second, like about 5 seconds of just pure silence. It was about 5 seconds, so thank you guys for that. Any concluding marks that I have here for impulsivity? Um, I think it's hard to recognize or admit. Here's the biggest thing. Yeah, let's end on this point. I'm gonna end on what I view as the biggest point with impulsivity. I think the thing that is the worst characteristic to impulsivity is the fact that I think many of us would be way too embarrassed to admit that we actually have it. Especially like at the top of this, how I was describing to people that it can be looked at as like a medical condition. That when you look up the definition for these things, the first thing that's kind of given to you is the medical definition of it. I think that because of things like this, it's like, admitting that you need to go to a therapist is something that people oftentimes like. I'm not doing that. Like, I'll just go to therapy if I feel like I need therapy, but I'm not admitting that I'm not. No, there's nothing wrong. For me to admit that means that there's something wrong with me. I think that notion, like the idea of us think like I admitting or acknowledging like, okay, there might genuinely be something wrong with me in regards to this field, like if it's taking control of my life, especially. um we don't want to look at ourselves that way. We don't want other people to look at us that way. So I think that is kind of like the biggest hurdle with impulsivity, is like being in a position where accepting being in a position where you can't accept that you struggle with it, and that you have to deal with it. Most people, as far as I've seen, I don't think, even people who I know, just from, again, I won't say no, but I definitely would guess that they do struggle with it. Most of those people, if I do try to talk to them about it, it's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't apply to me. I don't know why you're even bringing that up to me, because that doesn't apply to me. So I think that's like the biggest challenge of it all, is just being able to accept and acknowledge and like kind of catch yourself on it. I use the example of the podcast. That's me kind of trying to use that as well to prove to you, like, there are instances where I can witness myself going through those impulsive actions, and taking the impulsive route. I don't It's an acknowledgement. The first step is being able to acknowledge it, being able to see it, be self-conscious enough with myself to know, okay, yeah, this is a real thing. Like, this is actually something that I have a difficulty with. And then from there, then you can start to introduce those things. So I guess if my last message to you guys in regards to impulsivity is, if anything that I've said in the 23 minutes before this, if anything that I said just kind of strikes that nerve within you internally, like personally, if it sounds like, wow, this may apply to me, even if it's something where you're just listening to it by yourself, um, but you notice that in hearing this, some of those things or some of those situations sound like they could apply to me as well. um, I just recommend that you just acknowledge it. Like, do what you got to do to get to the point of acknowledging it. Try to get to that step. Like, try to take the time that you need to figure out, okay, I'm meeting myself in the mirror. What is it about myself here that I'm missing? Give yourself that opportunity. Um, that's what I'll leave you guys on with impulsivity. I'm trying not to make these videos too long. I want to kind of keep them within 30 minutes, something quick to digest. And if you happen to, you can let the shows stack and just watch them at night or whatever. That's what I'm trying not to do. Like, any music that is very excited and such, I want this to just kind of be something that you just kind of come into with a calm, almost meditative like state. So, I'm not trying to make these too long for you guys, but that's all that I have. Just kind of think about these things if you feel like it's worth thinking about. Again, this is mental maintenance, where we are going to be working on thinking about the psychological, medical, neurological, and personal, and just commonplace issues that we happen to face or that I notice that I face, and just kind of want to talk to you guys about. If you are interested in just more World War, woo, getting those words all jumbled there. Sorry about that. Real world. If you are interested in real world news, and just kind of deep dives and analysis on problems and things that's happening in the world currently, I'm gonna be trying to educate myself on these things, and just happen to figure that it'd be probably a good idea if I bring you guys in on a journey that is gonna be on our show called Croco Cares. Look for that in the future. If I don't already have a show out by the time that this is airing, then just look for that. It's going to take me a couple of weeks to build each shows, because I got to like really dive in and do research. I don't want to tell misinformations in that show. I would like to try to objectively just kind of bring real facts and history into that. Um, so yeah, if you're interested in just kind of learning along with me in regards to the things happening in the world, tune in to Croco Cares. For this material, again, just kind of be on the lookout for anything that says mental maintenance on it. In regards to our comic book and anime content, again, all of that has been moved. If you would like to see more of that content, I ask that you tune in to Squad Nero. That's SQUADNERO podcast, PODCAST. You can check us out on Instagram, and you can get way more information there. We do live streams on Saturdays, or excuse me, on Sundays or Mondays. Um, in regards to that content and the geekier and nerdier stuff. So if you're interested in any of that MCU, DC, anime, pop culture, science fiction stuff, if you're interested in any of that, just tune in the Squad Nero podcast. Go on our Instagram page, and you'll be able to find our resources. We live stream from Twitch at Smooth Entertainment. That's SMOOV, no E entertainment, or no, yeah, no E at the end of it, because I guess the E is with the entertainment. I didn't even realize that until just now. That's pretty cool. But yeah, all of that should be linked on the Instagram page for you guys. Also connected to the page is our guy T Smooth, TSMOOV. So again, not the E there. But yeah, you can check out his page to just kind of see some of the streams that he has going on. Please, if you are into like streaming, and if you like watching people play all of the popular titles that are out today in gaming, T puts a lot of work into those. He's constantly there for you guys, and he has a really unique and creative personality to go along with unique and creative content. So if you do like watch, just kind of somebody to, if you do like watching somebody to stream games and stream different content in that regard, check out his stream as well for that. And again, guys, thank you so much just for listening to another edition of Mental Maintenance. I'm going to let things ride out with you guys with just some music, but again, thanks.